Hello and welcome back to the Boro Women podcast, a podcast that delves into the Middlesbrough Women dressing room to chat to those playing, coaching and working within Middlesbrough Women FC. We're on episode 6 and with it comes a very special guest. So welcome to the podcast, Middlesbrough Women manager, Steph Fairless. How are you doing? Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Getting by 3 weeks without football, so as good as any other football fan, but in myself, all right. How are you feeling the same way?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, I think everyone's starting to miss it a little bit now, so it'll be good to get back on the pitch. Obviously, the girls and us are still doing some stuff behind the scenes and doing what we can, but it's always the best bit being on the pitch, isn't it? So hopefully, a couple of weeks we'll be back out there.
It's always the end game, isn't it? Fingers crossed and not too much longer. I was going to say, I've got written down here, first and foremost, it has officially been 3 weeks from the day we're speaking today, which is the 22nd, since we last played. Great day it was as well. But how have you been in yourself since lockdown ensued and the season went on pause?
Yeah, good. It was nice to finish on a bit of a win and a bit of a high. I think if we'd have lost that game and then we did go into lockdown how we have it, we'd be looking at things a little bit differently. But I think getting that win and easing us kind of up the table a little bit was nice. So, yeah, definitely more positive moving into it. But like I say, the girls have got a programme that they're following at the minute. We're keeping track of them. So they're doing all they can to make sure when we are back at things in the next couple of weeks that they're raring to go and hopefully get another 3 points, fingers crossed, against West Brom, which is obviously scheduled for the 13th.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't seen that, that's the schedule, and we're fingers crossed that's gonna go ahead. But we never know. If truth be told, we've had a few people asking, but we genuinely don't know, do we?
No, yeah. At the minute, we're as blind as everybody with everything. But yeah, it's scheduled in for the 13th, so fingers crossed it does go ahead. But we're planning for that, and that's all we can do at the minute. And then planning for the games after Christmas. So yeah, fingers crossed we do and get another game in before we break for Christmas again, and then back at it in January, which looks like some busy fixtures, to be honest. It's week after week when we get into January, so we'll be right back at it.
Might finish the season in 2025 if we're lucky.
It's going that way, isn't it?
Yeah. What were your thoughts on the season being paused? Like, is it frustrating that the divisions above us continued when ours weren't?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think Juice is probably not a great time for us finally getting the win that we'd been looking for, and then coming to a pause straight away is we've kind of got that bit of momentum and we've lost it now. So I think that was the frustrating thing. But we've still got a lot to work on, like results beforehand we were struggling with, and we were really hoping to get them 3 points against Loughborough. So it's probably just give us a nice chance to reflect on where we were at, what we've done, go through a few more things with the girls in terms of the way we want to play, how we want to play, set pieces and stuff, just to make them as prepared as possible. Because I think when we're in this season, it's quite difficult to get them all on a Zoom call and go through them things because everyone's busy and obviously we're training in games and stuff. So yeah, it's just been a good chance to reflect on things. But yeah, I think when you see leagues above still playing, you kind of get a little bit frustrated and you're looking at thinking, I wish that was us every weekend playing, but that's where we're at. So we've just got to deal with things as we go along and get back into things when we can.
In terms of like you as a manager, then I'm probably going a little bit too far forward here, but you're still a young manager in terms of like experience, 28, I think, if that's correct.
I'll take 28.
28, that sounds good to me. It's younger than me anyway. But there's a season that's had so many stop-starts, so much of, I mean, it's mentally tough for everyone, the situation, let alone footballers. In a way, is that kind of the benefit that you can take from an experienced manager, that you've had this to deal with for the best part of like a year? You'll never have this situation again. So maybe the mental side of the game and also the physical side of the game, this is give you a bit of a benefit moving forward for when things are normal?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's give us a lot more planning time than you used to as well. Obviously, when seasons run as normal, we kind of back end of May, you give them a bit of June off and then you're back in pre-season again, ready for an August start. So the first lockdown, all the time that we had off, it gave us a good chance to plan how we want to play, what we want to do, speak to the girls, make sure they fully understand what we're expected of them, and it felt like we had the longest pre-season ever, moving into the start of the season. So in that aspect, it's been good because you wouldn't have normally got that. So moving forward, obviously, as I develop as a manager, we've got the bulk of stuff done, so we can just change and add things and take things away as we evolve as a club, as a team, moving forward. And I think this lockdown, it's good to work with the strength and conditioning guys and the physical team a little bit more. Sometimes, obviously, we have input on what we want and how we want things to be done. But when you're in the season, you kind of trusting them to follow what you've asked and crack on with it, basically. Whereas when we are in lockdown, it's more chance to speak to them, have a chat with them, look at the programmes that the one and the girls to follow, and just seeing where everybody's at in terms of them things. So it's been difficult, it's been different, but to be honest, you could be the most experienced manager in the league and you've never experienced what we have this year. So it's different for everyone, but it's just making sure we use the time wisely and plan and get things in place moving forward for the team and for the club in the future, not even just this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do go into this season and your coaching and stuff like that, there's one thing I wanted to touch on quite heavily, because I feel like there's not enough people know about it because the women's game's had such a big growth. But obviously you've got a big history with Middlesbrough, something which I know an awful lot about. And I think there's a few too many people are aware of it, shall we say. I'll say a few too people, not that people aren't of. But tell us a little bit about how you became to be a footballer before you became a coach.
Yeah, so basically, I started probably a little bit later than most. I was, I think it was about 11. Gemma Granger actually used to come into my school with a job that she did at the time and just work with school teams and stuff. And she asked me to go along to a girls' team that was getting up and running. So I moved across to there and then actually started playing for the Lionesses initially. And then from there, got into what is now the girls' RTC. But before then, it was called the Centre of Excellence. So you played for your club team and the Centre of Excellence back then. Then my last couple of years, that changed to the RTC, where you played for them kind of full time and you left your grassroots team. And then as soon as I turned 16, it was Maz at the time that was the manager. She asked me to go and sign for Middlesbrough. So yeah, signed for them and then played for them for quite a few seasons before obviously then going into coaching, and I got an injury, unfortunately, so I ended up going into coaching a little bit sooner than I'd like. But and then I've kind of gone full cycle now. So Middlesbrough Women manager and technical director of the RTC. So it's nice to go from full pathway, if you like. I've been there as a player, I've been there as a coach, and now to kind of be running the two, it's nice. And I know what the players are going through as well. I've been there, so that helps a little bit sometimes.
What are the differences from what you can see at grassroots now compared to when you were at grassroots, maybe say 15, 16? Like what was it like for you as a 15, 16-year-old in comparison to say Jazz, Alicia or someone like that that's in the side at the moment? Is the differences? Has it come on a lot more, do you think?
Yeah, I think the game's it's changed a lot. I think it's a lot more technical. It was a lot more physical when I was 16. I think there was and I think when I played as a 16-year-old, it was very rare that a 16-year-old got in the first team. Whereas now, obviously, a lot of our players are younger and people tend to stop playing earlier. So a lot of the players were a little bit older when I played and a lot more experience, which was good as well, because having them experienced players, you learn from them quickly and you develop as a player. So yeah, definitely that. We've obviously got a really young squad now, so that's changed probably since I was there. And I think, yeah, like I say, just technically, I think it was a bit more physical kind of back then, and it's a lot more technical now. But I think the support in general that the clubs have now has changed. I think as the game grows and people get more involved in it. We didn't have a strength and conditioning team, for example, when I played. We didn't have a physio. So then things have evolved as we've gone along. It was a really good setup when I was there. Maz was brilliant and we've done really well as a team. But I think like any club, as it moves forward and you get more support, that's kind of changed. But that link between the RTC and Middlesbrough is a lot better now as well, which is nice. Because if you look, a lot of our players do come from the RTC, and it's easy for the girls to kind of have that transition now moving forward. Whereas as back then, it wasn't as tight knit or as close together when I played.
Talking about this is probably me trying to big the media side of things up, so forgive me for stroking my own ego. But one of the big differences probably from say 10, 15 years ago when I was young, I probably couldn't name a full 11 England Lionesses team 10, 15 years ago. Now I could probably name you the full squad and who's likely to get in the squad next time, and the sort of the under 21s. Do you think for girls like Alicia in particular and Faye, who were like in the under 17 England squads, having that visual of the likes of Lucy Bronze, Steph, Jordan Nobbs, players like that. Do you think that also gives like an extra benefit as well, that they can see there's a career to be made in women's football now where maybe there wasn't, say, maybe 15, 20 years ago?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's probably why you get a lot more girls playing and staying with the game a little bit now as well, because they can see that pathway, whether that's as a player or even as a coach. There's a lot more options for them moving forward now, which, like you say, wasn't there back then. And even social media, like you say, it's evolved over them years. So back then you wouldn't see many highlights of us playing kind of 10 years ago, whereas now obviously the stuff that you do and the stuff that everyone else does within the teams, it's a lot more visible. You can go on Twitter and you'll see a goal within seconds, whereas you couldn't access things as quick as you could back then. So yeah, definitely, and them having role models and female players that they look up to rather than always having male role models is brilliant. And I think the stuff that the female game's doing and the way it's grown is it's really good, and hopefully it'll keep going that way and keep developing as the years go.
And someone who's probably in some ways really underappreciated that I really wanted to speak about is obviously our club ambassador, Maz, who you touched on before. How important was she to you, not just as a player, but as a person, as a coach, and also as a player when you were coming through?
Yeah, really good. I think if anyone knows Maz, she's definitely Miss Middlesbrough, and she's Middlesbrough through and through. She obviously had a really good playing career as well. I think it was called Cleveland Spartans when she played back in the day before it formed to Middlesbrough. And she's got an England cap herself. So yeah, she certainly had a good career. And yeah, I think someone as passionate as Maz is in the game, you kind of thrive off that and want to kind of support that and be the same yourself as a manager and as a coach. She was a lot stricter than I am, I think. We certainly got a telling off a lot of the time, but that's what us as players at the time kind of needed, and that's what pushed us on and drove us moving forward to succeed. So yeah, she was a really good manager, a really good coach as well, and someone that we're definitely happy to have back in the club and bring our experience from over the years.
Yeah, she's great. I think the first time I met her, she had a good 15-minute rant about how she wanted the badge to change. So she's definitely passionate.
She's very honest. Yeah. There's no middle ground with her. She'll tell you what she thinks, but I think that's probably why we love her as well, to be fair.
Yeah, very much so. In terms of, just before I move away from your playing career, just out of total curiosity, I think you told me this, but the listeners obviously won't know. What was it that curtailed your career then? You said it was an injury. Was it a knee injury?
Yeah, good old ACL injury, like many kind of players. But yeah, I'd done that, and then it just took me a couple of years to kind of get back from it. And I just think I'd lost it a bit by then. I'd got a bit older as well. So yeah, it was time to hang up the boots and start concentrating a little bit more seriously on my coaching, which I did. And thankfully that's where I am at the minute, obviously with Middlesbrough and with the RTC.
You started doing that like before the injury and stuff, didn't you? You were coaching from, I called you a young manager before in terms of like when you took Middlesbrough over maybe, but you've been coaching for ages and managing at like other levels as well for a long time, since before you were playing, is that right?
Yeah, so I've coached since I was 16. Fortunately, I was a coach at the RTC where I moved through the age groups. I moved kind of from under 10s right through to under 16s with the likes of Eleanor Dale, Emma Brown, Hannah Luke, Leone. So I've seen all them through as youngsters as well, and moving into the ladies. And yeah, I coach at Teesside Uni as well. So I've coached all age groups and all levels, which to be honest helps me out a little bit as well, because regardless of the age of the player, especially at the ladies, you kind of know where they're at and what they're going through, which is what you need to do to support them. As much as football wise, they've got a lot going on outside of football, whether that's college, uni, or home. So yeah, just making sure we can support them, which over the years I've been able to do. But yeah, I've been coaching quite a long time now. But yeah, where I'm at the minute in terms of the RTC and the ladies is a good position to be in, and I'm definitely fortunate to be there, and hopefully can carry on that and get them as successful as we can over the coming seasons.
Talking about your appointment as Middlesbrough manager, obviously, I want to say it's been about 18 months, but lockdown's kind of skewed me off a little bit. I know I was here for your 1 year anniversary, but then I'm trying to think, was that before lockdown, after lockdown? So I'm going to say about 18 months. Is that right?
Yeah, I think is it about, early next year, I think is about 2 years. So yeah, you won't be far off.
I'm not too far
there
away.
Or thereabouts.
So how did the appointment come about? Because obviously you've been involved in and around the club, but then actually being offered the job, I imagine it was a job you always wanted. So how did it come about?
It was all of a bit sudden, if I'm being honest. I'd spoke to Lindsay, who obviously was there at the time, just to ask if I could come in and help out and do some coaching. So I came in for a couple of weeks, doing a little bit with the reserves, done a couple of things with the first team, and then just with some change in staff in the first couple of weeks, she rang me and asked me if I wanted to take over and take charge of the team, which obviously for me was brilliant and a proud moment, something I've always wanted to do. So getting that opportunity, I was never going to kind of turn that down. Shot in the deep end a little bit, but I think a lot of the time that's the best way to do it. I think I'd been appointed the Tuesday, and then the Wednesday night we had Sunderland at home. So yeah, Sunderland at home and then Blackburn away on the Sunday. So talk about having a first two tough games, but no, it was good, and obviously I'm thankful that Lindsay gave me the opportunity at the time, and now obviously Ben coming in. He backs me 100% in whatever we do, which is nice to always have the support of them guys. So shot in the deep end, but we're still here and we're still going and hopefully moving the club in the right direction.
Talking about Ben, obviously I've met Lindsay sporadically. I came in, I think, at the tail end of Lindsay going, and Ben pretty much took over, I think, a week later after I came in. So it was a bit of a change for me, even just to have Ben. But what differences do you find that there is with Ben? Like, what's sort of been like working with Ben in the first year, and what do you feel that he's bringing to the club for you personally?
Ben's really good. I think firstly, just obviously he took over from Lindsay, and Lindsay did put the club in a good position. I think over the years she'd done a really good job with the club, but I suppose she'd been involved that long. Sometimes it needs a fresh face to come in, and I think Ben coming in was a breath of fresh air. He's obviously really good at looking at the sponsorship side, moving the club in the right direction, making sure the girls have everything they need. He's been really good, and he's been really supportive with us as staff. I think firstly, from my point of view, he does let me crack on with things on how I want to do it, which as a manager, you can't want much more. He doesn't try and get involved in the football side of things, which is nice. We kind of just lead on it. Yes, we pass stuff through him if we need to, but he's quite happy for us to use what skills and qualities we've got as coaches and a group of staff and move the team in the right direction. But yeah, Ben's brilliant. I think anyone that's met Ben, even he's a lovely guy, and he'll do anything for you. So yeah, him coming in and making the changes he has with the club has been brilliant, and certainly moving in the club in the right direction long term as well as just short term.
Yeah, and he very much sees it as like a long-term project as well, doesn't he? He bangs on to me about a long-term project, and I'm always the person that wants everything now. But Ben is very much long-haul person. He sees this as a long-term project, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think you have to. I think there's been that many changes probably over the last couple of seasons, and changeover of staff and players, and I think as much as your season runs over your 9 months, it does have to be a long-term project, and that's including the RTC as well, and having that link and that support of them players coming through as well. But overall, where we want the club to go, and hopefully where us as staff and Ben can lead it, is a really good place. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen overnight, and there's things that we're changing as the seasons go along. This year, obviously, we changed the way we would play a lot more. That takes time to get used to, which you can see probably with our performances and results. We've performed really well, but haven't got the results. So it's getting those two together now and actually getting 3 points with the way we want to play. And then obviously, like I've mentioned, the strength and conditioning team are brilliant. But that's a long-term project in terms of how the players move, different ways we want them to be able to move and change direction and stuff based on how we play. So that again takes time. That won't happen overnight. But I think overall, as we're moving forward, if you're involved in the club or in and around the club, you can see the progress we're making each week, and that's only going to get better moving forward. Fortunately, we've got obviously the likes of you, Graham, with the social media, like say the strength and conditioning team, the technical coaches. We have got a really good group of staff that want the club to do well and want to work hard for them to do well. So quite fortunate in that sense. So if we all keep going the way we are, hopefully the club will be in a really good position moving forward.
Yeah, no, it feels very unified. I think I've said that since I've came in, especially now. But talking about long-term long-term plans and stuff like that. There's a really good question that I should probably bring in now. I normally bring in Twitter questions at the end, but I'm here, so we might as well go with it. It's from Tat. You'll not be surprised to hear. I would say number one fan, but he says, question for Steph. Where would you like to see the club in the next 3 years? And with a promotion to the Championship, how much would that affect the club in a positive financial sense?
I think the aim is to get the team promoted. That's the long-term aim. But we also want the club to be in a position that if we do get promoted, we'd stay in that league and wouldn't come back down. So, for example, at the minute, if I was being honest, are we in a position to, if we won the league this year, go up and stay up? I would say probably not. We've still got a lot of work to do kind of behind the scenes and on the pitch. So it's building the next couple of seasons to make sure we're a team that are a tough team in that league and a tough team to beat. I think if you look at our league now, you've got the likes of Huddersfield, Notts Forest, Files, like they're experienced teams that have been in them leagues a long, long time and are in a position probably to move forward and to get promoted. Whereas I think we've still got a little bit of work to do with that. But yeah, moving forward, and if we did get promoted, that's definitely something we want to do and definitely an aim of mine and Ben's in the long run. Obviously, in the women's game, it's not as easy as just the on the pitch stuff. There's a financial side of that. So we would be affected by, we'd need sponsorships. Hopefully one day the club might Middlesbrough Football Club might come on board a little bit more. They've started to do little bits for us, which has been brilliant. But yeah, if they can maybe support us a little bit more moving forward, we'd definitely be in a better position to get promoted and to move up. But yeah, over the next kind of 2-3 years, that's definitely the aim, to be a team that are fighting for that promotion and hopefully get there eventually.
In terms of just going back to sort of your management style and stuff like that, I've referred to you as a young manager and we've obviously touched on that, but what are the biggest challenges for you? Because it's the first time you've managed in this league and you've been there like 18 months, but what are the biggest challenges for you as a young manager throughout those 18 months? What things have you maybe learned from the first year that you've now changed going forward?
I think on the pitch this year, we're a team that we want to stick to the way we want to play. I think previously we were putting a team out to beat the team we were playing, if that makes sense. So we were always going off what the other team were doing rather than focusing on our own game. And like I said before, the break that we had over COVID, the first lockdown, gave us a chance to put that in place. So now we are just sticking to the way we want to play, following our philosophy and our game model and making teams play against us. I think even the games that we've lost, you can see the style of play that we want to play. But that's going to take time, and it'll take time for the players to get used to as well. So that's developing as we go along. So that on the pitch, that's definitely something that I've learned and I'm developing as we go. But this league's a tough league. You've got teams that I think a lot of teams are a lot older than us in terms of the ages of players, and you can see that on the pitch sometimes in the experience that they have, and that sometimes is just as much as the ability that a player has. So I think just getting used to the way other teams play, learning more about them, and just putting our players in the best position to know what they're coming up against week after week. And it has to be a full club thing. I think, like I keep mentioning, the other guys that are involved in the development of the players, that's massive. It's not just the technical stuff and the on the field stuff. So yeah, I think as a manager, using everyone's skill set moving forward rather than just kind of focusing on one thing, and if we all pull together as a group, that's what's putting the players in the best position. But we've obviously got a lot of players and a lot of mix of age of players as well. So I suppose dealing with players and how I deal with each individual, I've developed over at times gone on. I'd like to say I'm quite a nice manager. I'll have conversations with them separately. I'm not one to scream and shout at players and have a go at them. But I think the players also know that if I am saying something, they know when they need to switch on and listen, and when we're having a little bit of a mess on. But each player is different, so that differentiation of players and how you deal with each one, that comes with time and getting to know players and even staff. I think communication skills as you move along, you develop, and the way you deal with staff and players is very different depending on who you're speaking to. So yeah, just generally how I deal with people, I think something that I've learned over the last 18 months.
You talked before about like experience on the pitch and things like that, and a lot of people do comment on it. It's something that I really like about us. But we've got a lot of players like, top of my head, Katie Wilson, Jazz McQuaid, Alicia Fairdale. You've never been frightened to throw in someone if they were, say, 16, 17 years old and give them a chance in the first team. Why do you think that's so important, to give players who are maybe deemed too young for a chance in the first team such a chance, and allow them to blossom and maybe be a bit naive on the pitch? Why do you find that so important?
I think as players develop, the only way they're going to develop is by playing football matches. And each player will develop differently. So the younger players that come through, I have conversations with on a regular basis, whether they're playing with the reserves, if they are, why they're playing with the reserves, if they're with us and they're on the bench, why they're on the bench, or again while they're starting. I've always been honest with players, and they all know that nobody's guaranteed game time regardless of who you are. And that's something that we speak to any new players that want to come in, or everyone at the start of the season. But I think, new players, look, if you're training well and you're doing well in training and playing well, why shouldn't you be given that opportunity? And who are we to take that away from them just because of their age? But I think they grow up a lot. I think coming in at 16, as much as the young, you do grow up quite quickly in adult football. So they are a little bit naive at times, but do you know what? They're not going to learn unless they're given them experiences. So I think if we do look at long term for the club, giving them younger players opportunities and opportunities in the first team is the only way we're going to develop as a club as well.
In terms of like developing players and things like that as well, I think you'll find some managers that can be sort of control freaks and want to have like everything in place and everything's like got to be their way. I think, and I'm only reading between the lines, obviously I'm not in the dressing room, but I think you're very happy for the older players to also have an influence and also lead as well, like on the pitch and off the pitch. So with the amount of young players that we do have, how important are the roles of Rebecca Bassie, Anna Young, Emma Foster? How important do their roles become with the amount of teenagers, young players we have in the team?
Yeah, I think they're massive. Obviously, the likes of Bassie's been around a long time in the game, and the experiences she has as a player is massive. The same as Anna and obviously Foster as well. They've got a lot of experiences, and I think them taking a lead sometimes in even conversations at half time before the game. They'll look at it differently, and they'll probably speak to the players differently to how we do. And I think players taking responsibility and taking ownership is massive. Yes, we can give them as much stuff as possible and information, obviously training, preparing them from games. But as soon as they step onto that pitch on a Sunday and a game day, that's up to them. So having them players that can take the lead and take a bit of ownership with what we're doing is massive. Obviously, players will speak differently away from staff as well. At the end of the day, we're the ones picking the team. So having some leaders in the training ground where they can be honest, they can speak to each other, and then obviously Bassie being the captain, she can then feed back to us as staff. I think is really important. But we have a nice mix. We have some older ones, some in between, and then obviously younger ones, and I think they all bring something different. But yeah, having the older ones and having that experience is definitely really important within the squad.
One of probably the big challenges for you, and I think almost everyone in the summer, wasn't just COVID, it was the fact that players moved on for reasons that were, their own reasons, and certain things happened. But we lost, obviously, Laura Wareham, who was a captain of the club, had been there for years and a huge character, still is. Obviously, Ellie Dobson's the same. She was pretty much exactly what I've just said about Laura. And Emma, obviously, and Hannah both went over to America. So there's 4 first-team players that were lost there. And the likes of Rosie and Cass have came in. How impressed have you been by the people like you brought in to replace, obviously, long-standing members of the club? And how impressive do you think they've been in the dressing room and integrating themselves so quickly?
Yeah, I think they've done really well. Like you say, I think we lost a few big characters that we did have in the team last season, and they're moved on for different reasons. And obviously they're doing well within the clubs that they're at now. But yeah, the players that they're coming have done really well. I think when we did get quite a few new players at the same time, so it probably helped to kind of integrate them a little bit more within the squad. And they already knew a few of the girls, which always helps. But yeah, I think Rosie, you just look at her performances and she's been outstanding. And she's fitting really well. Cass at the back has been, I call her the little terrier, because she's just everywhere and she's always nibbling at people's ankles. But even the likes of Ollie as well coming in, I think she's been brilliant for the squad as a whole. She's a very positive player, and she brings a lot vocally as well within training and within games. So yeah,
she does in the car on the way back. She's very vocal in the car on the way back as well.
You'll know, won't you? Yeah, she'd be chewing your head off. But no, everyone brings something a little bit different, and again, them players coming from different teams bring different experience as well, and how they've been either coached or they've played with other teams and then coming into us. But to be fair, we're one big family, and everyone does get on, and it's a nice atmosphere, whether that's training or games. But yeah, the new players have definitely brought something to the team, and they bring competition for places as well. I think previous years we didn't have a really big squad, so any players, I think most players, whether they'd say it or not, probably knew if they were starting or not when they came to the game because of the depth of the squad that we had. Whereas this year we've got 20 players for the first team, so some are left out and maybe go with the reserves each week, and then the starting 11 can change depending on who we're playing and who's training well. So yeah, having a bit more depth to the squad definitely helps for the new players coming in.
With the players that have sort of not managed to maybe get in the team as frequently as they would maybe want, how impressed have you been by their character? The likes of sort of Taylor, for example, maybe hasn't played as often as she would like to, and yet she was one of the first people on the pitch pretty much when we scored in the last minute. Like, how impressed have you been by maybe the players who haven't had much of a chance on the pitch, their attitude towards still coming into training and forcing themselves into the team if possible?
Yeah, I think as a player you can go one of two ways. I think you can kind of have the mindset of, unfortunately, first team football players are going to be left out, and that's just the brutal part of the game. So you can go with the mindset of, I'm going to crack on and keep going and training and trying the best I can to get that opportunity. And players will get injured. Players maybe might move on. Obviously, Dan's just moved on, so there will be opportunities that come up. And I think if you've got the mindset of you're going to keep asking questions of us as staff and you're wanting to be in the squad, or you can go on the other mindset of, I'm not playing every week, I'm not bothered, and I'm not going to be involved, I'm not going to try or even work hard in training. But I think the group that we've got, and because they are a squad and they are a team and they want to help each other out, they would never go down that route. So whether you're involved in the starting 11 on Sunday or not, them 2 training sessions beforehand are massive, and really important that we get the intensity and get what we need out of the sessions. So I think because we are a big group and they do want to do well as a group and not just individuals, I think that's the mindset that they go down. But yeah, the likes of Taylor, obviously Sav as well, they've probably not had as much opportunities as they would like, but it's a long season and we've got plenty of games to come. So those players are doing really, really well, and definitely knocking on the door to potentially get some game time, hopefully moving forward.
Talking about sort of players moving on, we have to touch on it ever so slightly. Obviously, Dan was technically not a new signing because she joined in sort of March and then lockdown happened. So she never really played until this season and became like a really, really important player and has moved on to Durham. Is it difficult when that happened, or does it open opportunities for other players? Is it more of an exciting thing when a player goes, because then you think there's going to be 2 or 3 players that could potentially be fighting for that spot and you've got 3 players who will be busting the gut in training, or is it always disappointing to lose a player regardless?
Yeah, I think obviously when players move on, it's always disappointing as a squad because they're part of your team. But look, Dan's moved on to a higher league and for different reasons. She's joined Durham, and we wish her all the best in that, as we would any player. But yeah, I think in terms of a squad, other players have to be looking now, thinking there's an opportunity there to get in the squad. So if I was some players, the likes of Alicia, Jazz, Leonie, players like that playing in around them positions, you'll be thinking, do you know what, I'm going to work hard in training and I'm going to take that spot moving forward. So we've still got that competition for places, and yeah, those players will be looking at it. And from our point of view as a group of staff, it's a change in personnel as well, so that has to be exciting and something that we'll look at moving forward and who'll fit in well in that position, or if we change the formation based on who we have. But yeah, it's obviously disappointing to lose Dan, and like I say, we wish her all the best, but also an exciting time for the club for other players to step up now and put the stamp on that position and get in the starting 11.
Without giving any sort of transfer rumours or anything away, because I don't know as much as the next person, unfortunately, is there a possibility that you might look to bring further players in for the second part of the season, or is it something you haven't really looked at yet and you're more interested in getting back on the pitch and maybe dealing with a squad that you've got already?
No, yeah, if I'm being honest, we're always looking at players and having a look where we might need players. I think as a manager, you're always thinking like that. And when a player does move on, you're certainly thinking, do we need to replace someone there or add to that squad? And I think long term as well, obviously, a couple of our players last season went on to go to America and play out there. And it might be the case that others do moving forward. So we've always got to keep adding to that squad. I spoke about having a depth of squad and how important it is for us. So if players do move on, or we know that players might be moving on in the future, it's important that we get people in nice and early to add to the squad and to replace them as such, I suppose. So yeah, it's something we're always looking at and aware of. Obviously, I can never say much more than that, but yeah, it's something that's ongoing throughout the season, not just because Dan's moved on. We're always looking at it as we go through the season. So yeah, there potentially could be some signings moving forward, but we'll see.
Just to kind of end then in a way, I think we're 8 games in, but obviously last season I think we ended in 7th in what was it? Well, ended in 7th. Something happened and we ended up in 7th when COVID sort of kicked in and the season was cancelled. Whereas this season we're currently sat in 9th. So when you're looking at it on paper, it's 2 positions behind. But as I've been saying to everyone and anyone who's came to the games and didn't come last season, how much we've improved as a squad and as a team. We're almost in almost every game this year, which we maybe weren't last year. So even though it looks like a tough start of the campaign, there has been some really encouraging signs. What has impressed you the most about the way the team's playing and individuals are playing in the opening throws of the campaign?
Yeah, I think like you say, overall, I think we've improved a lot since last season, but unfortunately, it looks like every team's improved a lot as well. So yeah, it's been tough, but I think the mindset of the girls, I think even the games where we have got beaten, it's been frustrating. If you've seen the game the week after, they've really cracked on and dug in and tried to get the result again. And it has been tough. I think losing as many games as we did in a row, it doesn't matter what team you are, that's difficult to take. I think the first chunk of the games it was frustrating because we played really well and we should have won the games, but then we also went through a spell where actually we didn't deserve anything from the game, and actually that was probably easier to take than the likes of the Sunderland game and the Hull game, where we've played really well and should have put the game to bed quite early on, and we haven't. Even filed to a certain degree, and then obviously in kind of the middle of that we've had obviously Derby, where we didn't deserve anything from that game. So yeah, it's been as much as we've only had a few games, there's been a split between that, and obviously we had Loughborough where we managed to get 3 points in Burnley. So yeah, I think in terms of the mindset, the players have done really well. Training's still being really good and high intensity. It's difficult mentally when you're not getting the wins on the Sunday, and it is for us as staff as well, not just the players. I think you come away and think, right, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to do better? And that's just an ongoing cycle. But like you've mentioned before, some of the older players, the likes of Bassie and Anna, and Dolly, they've kind of pulled all the players together and kept that mindset and that attitude positively moving forward, which thankfully we got the result at Loughborough, which I think if you see the celebrations, it was definitely something we were wanting. I think Chris even done his knee at one point when he done his punch in the air and fell over on the pitch. Unfortunately, you didn't get that, Graham, because that would have been great for your Twitter.
Because I was celebrating myself. I was two of me was celebrating in the stand all on my own, missing the whole pylon and everything. But yes, I did see Chris fall over, which I wish I got on camera. I must admit.
But yeah, I think it's difficult, and then obviously we've had this break again within another lockdown, which it is tough and it's not easy for everyone. I think everywhere, never mind if you're involved in football. But yeah, the players have done well. Like we've mentioned before, the younger players have stepped up as well. We've got Alicia and Faye who are still involved in the under-17s. They've just been called up to another camp, which is brilliant. Jazz, who's still in and around the under-19s. So we've got a lot of talented players and ones that are developing week in, week out. So if we keep doing that, I'm sure we'll be in a good position moving forward.
Perfect. Steph, thanks very much. Nice to speak to you again.
Yeah, you too. Yeah. See you soon, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.